Hello, night owls. Today from Chandler Brossard, a short story or two from Over the Rainbow, Hardly. And this is Closing the Gap. Closing the Gap. Gravediggers cannot be expected to have style, nor is it reasonable when all is said and done to ask of them that they be bilingual. Should they, however, keep a civil tongue in their head? Does their profession require a modicum of decency? Ticklish questions. Try this. Hello, thou there, you may shout. How do you feel about stiffs? Same way you feel about bum steers, he may indeed reply. Or if the gravedigger is a woman, she may answer, I don't know, I didn't go to college. Vis-a-vis decency. I don't mean to expose you to charges of favoritism, you might say, squatting there on the edge of the steaming, fresh-smelling new hole. But I would very much appreciate your being gentle when the time comes, of course, with the deceased in the casket, to be sure. You see, she was a very dear friend of mine, a woman of many parts, and her sudden and untimely... What goes on down here is strictly between me and this shovel. Whether that fits in with your plans is of no interest to me. What is he referring to? Isn't it about time we laid down some guidelines for intimacy? Is it unreasonable to suggest that intimacy be required to account for itself? There are those among us who feel that it should have a strong sense of the past. These people argue that in no way is this interchangeable with nostalgia. They say that nostalgia is a cover-up. Intimacy has friends in high places. It would like to rule the roost, but we're not going to let it. In all too many circumstances, it has carte blanche. On more than one occasion, it has refused to pay the piper. Up in the mysterious north, a disease-resistant strain of it is developing. Frankly, this is no cause for rejoicing. We must start somewhere. Time is running out as usual. First, victims of intimacy must be reinstated. Second, we must keep it from our children, no matter what the price. Poachers. The poachers and free will. You're barking up the wrong tree. Poach or be poached is their rallying cry. And only a troublemaker would gainsay it. But gainsaid it's been by waistcoated squires and the like, who say it's a recruiting cry, who say it's a unionizing cry. They simply cannot let well enough alone, says the mistress of the manor from her parapet. Poachers can be just like anybody else when the moment is upon them. You sure make a fine squirrel stew, mother. My name is Wilbur. You've always been a mother to me. It is questionable if Voltaire had poachers in mind when he dropped that famous crack of his. Are they really deaf or the siren song of high tech? Or are they just playing hard to get? You better talk to my agent, says one. Guffaws. Heads for his favorite bar. And Finn. Some runners are best advised to slow down. They should be told they'll get there in plenty of time. Where they're going will still be there when they arrive. Other runners should be exhorted to greater effort. Hit it, you guys, faster, faster. They don't have a moment to lose. But it's best not to tell them this. Might take the wind right out of their sails. Cutting corners ultimately may be the only answer. Meanwhile, it must not become the cherished prerogative of thrill-seekers and opportunists like architects and city planners. Disillusioned young wives should give it much more than a passing glance. They should know, however, that they cannot do it while nursing a grudge. Realpolitik beckons us only when we are prepared to part with richly endowed, many-flavored childhood pastimes and friends. Turn your back on them if that's the way you do things, but it's not requisite. Corner cutting may be your ticket to the stars. Pay no heed to the rancid gabbing of downstairs maids. It's not all that. It's not at all amiss to abandon a distinguished career in boredom to step out of line with a young high stepper. Try to be sure, if you can, that she is not a girl from the steppes, because if she is, she'll ride roughshod over you as she hears the call of Genghis Khan in her blood. There will be no authorized personnel around to minister to you when this happens. 2. Unlike a good many others whose identities will enter the public domain soon enough, garroters do not sleep on the job. Far, far more than just pride is involved here. They take a healthy interest in demographic symptoms. Folks are getting fatter up in my neck of the woods, said one, and chortled delight at his own wit flash. You ought to be glad you don't have to deal with all the rubbernecks down in my territory, said his buddy, not to be outwitted. Such exchanges are never meant to take the place of clean, sparkling professional rivalry, without which there is an inexorable loss of muscle tone as well as face. There is no law that says their wives must take everything lying down. They may and do speak up when things appear to be getting out of hand. For Pete's sake, will you stop practicing and come to bed? You will search fruitlessly in state archives to document this, but fatherly guidance is well within their reach. Dad, can I borrow the garret tonight? Have you done all your homework? Certain idiosyncratic measures will soon be taken to halt the steady rise of backbiting in the countryside. Ecological give and take is being threatened. Mother Nature is really worried. I might as well admit it, she says. I'm on the run. People with cows are dreaming less and less of the perfect udder. Simulas are popping up where once there was nothing but acres of hay seeds. Hoedowns are being phased out in favor of send-ups. School children can no longer be trusted. Full fellow Fife, my father lies, one young blighter wrote on the blackboard. He received a standing ovation from his classmates. Where was Teach? Out back, fighting. Citizens have taken to covering their backs in precisely the same way, and with the same unsavory elan they used in the past to cover their bets, giving their day-to-day movements, not excluding their traditional trips around the mulberry bush, more than enough unseasonal mystery. Of course, this adds a rare piquancy, a certain je ne sais quoi to the whole business, says one sportsman who desires to have his game and eat it too. Fighting fire with fire in this grassroots crisis would be counterproductive. There would be no backs left to go back to once the smoke had cleared. Bagging and tagging them wouldn't help. No shame left, but waking up where they didn't go to sleep in the dawn's early light, all the better to see themselves, for starters. What a relief. Cave dwellers and cave explorers finally seem to be working out their problems. And they are meeting one another halfway at the Ritz bar, at Fifi Rothschild's. Each group boyishly tries to regale the other with charming, well-grounded innuendo. Your taste for smoked lunkers is the talk of the town. So is yours for Trox Provincial. They are trying to decide on a program for sleepovers. Conservatives are leery of this. They say it could lead to pillow fights, maybe even feather bedding. They fear the intrusion of the United Mine Workers, who would just stink up the place with their cigar smoke and all that talk about portal-to-portal angst. So they suggest joint dress-ups instead. The women express their apprehension that this would bring out all the closet queens, which would surely impede their junior achievement project. They agreed to send a mixed passel into the desert to explode the first epistemological time bomb to clear the air once and for all. Meanwhile, they thoroughly grasp the necessity for closing ranks against a common enemy, the greedy mushroom growers, whose eschaton reads Tomorrow Mammoth Cave. Those guys will ruin it for everybody. All voices are raised as one in that outcry. 3. Knowledge as a baboon. Freeloaders must be thoroughly basted before being roasted. Be careful that you do not anoint them This would lead to unbearable complications and burdens for our court system, which is already straining at the leash. Should freeloaders be given Christmas presents, or should they be given as Christmas presents? And if the latter, what would be a suitable admonition to inscribe on the card? A struggling young print shop has come up with a dilemma, or a crisis. They were both mentioned in the same breath, i.e., whether to bring out a guide to freeloading, a guide for freeloaders, or a guide to freeloaders. Well, each has winning ways. The first gives order and amplitude to that which has been intuitive and idiosyncratic and ad hoc. The second takes care of spiritual needs, which can pop up at the damnedest times. And the third is a perfectly splendid public service with overtones of poignant realism. After all, many visitors are still hungry after making the traditional tours of the great gardens. In the long run, it is best not to hobnob with hobgoblins. They'll nickel and dime you to death on those nights when the moon is feeling its oats. They'll snitch on you to the hoi polloi when your back is turned. They'll make light of your earnest efforts to get to the top. Their jokes will turn out to be impractical, and you cannot write them off as entertainment. The by guy cannot go on indefinitely playing both ends against the middle. The middle will rise up and revolt. It'll sue under Section 15 of the Unfair Employment Practices Act. The courtroom will be cleared of anyone who doesn't have a leg to stand on. Opinions will be handed down. Raised eyebrows will be passed around. Old wives' tales must be dusted off. By guy will no longer be able to count on getting to the end by way of the middle. He will have to change his tune or deposit himself secretly in some Swiss bank where he will not have to account for himself. Unless somebody gets his number and leaks it out to a penny-a-line mudslingers from Grub Street who just happened to be vacationing in Switzerland at the time. Maintaining our balance, but at the same time not paying all that much attention to overdrafts, keeping our nose upwind, yet always on the ready to sniff out a deadbeat, planning eventually to put our best foot forward, though not so swell-headed as to overlook mounting evidence that other strategies have taken the adversary more by surprise, fingering the stone around our neck with the same illicit elegance that old Walt Disney fingered his girlish ambiguities. We smile and prepare to face the music. We have an edge. We have discovered something. The beat of that distant drummer is a recording. It just won't go away. What's that, you should ask? Well, our annual question. Oh, you mean whether to thin the poet herds? No, the question is, should we give tenure to witches? It plagues us. It haunts us. The nays say, give them lifetime security and quality will drop. They'll start using bouillon cubes instead of bone stock. They'll try to slip in last year's hexes. The situation will become top-heavy. Some witches will even start missing deadlines. Young witches will get up and go, will have nowhere to go but sideways. May even leave the area entirely and relocate in places where youth and talent have a future. Others may simply give up and start driving cabs. The years say service to the community must be rewarded. Witchery has been good to you. You must be good to it. Garbage men get pensions. Wives get alimony. Our older witches must be able to lean back on their brooms, smile, and say, home free. No more one-night stands at clearings in the woods for this broom. No more of those crazy rides through storm-filled clouds just to blot out a rich farmer's memory. Damn me, I'm in. Writing as a second language. An exhilarating adventure, to be sure. Comparable in its death-defying factors to taking up in-depth tap dancing as a last resort. It is not known whether it will gain you a wider audience or shrink the one you already have. Core samples are still being studied down in the lab. You may find that it will come in handy if you travel abroad, enable you, for example, to put upstart entrepreneurs in their place, get you into certain salons where games of chance are played with congenital indifference, grease affairs that are doomed from the start. It should certainly go without saying that taking up with a second language could very well precipitate hubris. You may decide that you know all second languages' secrets. You will affect the swagger. You will presume and use the familiar form, cultivate ellipses, even hope to swing a classy lisp. You will be riding for a fall. Remember what happened to Oedipus when he started dating his mother? Are yodelers to be given the right of way? Should they continue to be allowed out after curfew? Does their closeness with chamois cut any ice? Secret non-aggression pacts signed between them and mountain climbers and rope dancers are making them feel quite safe. Safer than most people, they seem to be saying. They exude the smugness that attends the signing of such pacts. One of these fine days, when the thrashing grounds are free and clear, it must be thrashed out whether the yodeler is an artist or a freak. Have they turned the human throat into a laughing stock? What does the throat have to say about those incorrigible sounds? Did anybody go to the trouble to ask it? Ask its permission? The children of yodelers make one uneasy. They're always on the verge of, at any moment without a reasonable warning, their first yodel will leap out. No matter what they may be doing at that moment, no matter what you may be doing at the very same moment, or your wife or your mother-in-law sitting next to her. Until the problem is cleared up, yodelers should not be exempted from deathbed confessions, nor should they be permitted to co-sign their own loans or bail bonds. And until the clinics announce the results of all those tests, and all marriages between yodelers should be held up. You can't be too careful when it comes to what sounds are good bets for our future and what sounds will bring the curtain down. Desiring this man's gift and that man's wife. Please, sir, watch your tongue. Poetic license simply cannot be used for personal advancement. 4. A fool and his mother are soon parted. 5. Den mothers are making a comeback. Just yesterday, 2 were spotted loping along the timberline. Another was seen hanging around a playground. Understandably, boys with old-fashioned needs will take heart from this. Boys with tender feet. Boys who have been cold-shouldered by modern practices. Whose fathers have felt along their blurred edges and said, "I wish you were made of sterner stuff." None of us can afford to forget how many of our boys simply vanished for good when it came time for them to prove their mettle. Before we put an end to that barbarous demand, that public display, is Dame Nature telling us it is time to reopen all the dens we so furiously padlocked? Must we bid adieu to incantations and bend our talents to recantations? We must say that we lost our head. This will permit us to save our face. To be sure, some heads will roll, but that's okay, for this will happen without anyone's having really to face up to anything. Seamless preparations must be made for those who will wish to face the music without losing face. Inevitably, two-faced types will try to hog the stage. Den mothers must not be encouraged to tell their side of the story. Keep that under your hat, we will say to them. Save it for another time, we should add. One would suppose they will take up where they left off, but they may not. Common sense tells us not to look too closely at the kind of deal they seal with the new boys. No two ways about it, we should certainly not countenance the disseminating of cards saying, "Your den or mine." "You'll be the death of me yet," a mere lad heard his mother say on more than one occasion. The first time he thought it was a snatch from an old song. The next time, he said to himself, "She must know something I don't know. Is she reading my mind? Or is she reading my mail?" If you ask me, his father said, I'd say she was reading the handwriting on the wall. But we live in a tent, Mirlad said. Ain't no walls here. One day, hunting in the woods, he mistook his mother for a honey bear and let her have it. Well, she was right, he said, and put his gun back where it belonged. But somehow, I don't think this is what she had in mind. There's more to destitution than meets the eye. Some are born to it. Others spend a lifetime acquiring it. All the money in the world won't buy it. Community leaders have tried for years to have it classified among the 7 lively arts. Success finally seems within their reach. Entrepreneurs of poverty frequently have tried to palm it off as destitution, in much the same way that mayors try to pass off potholes as potluck. People who are chafing at the limitations of their roles as penniless beggars and shiftless skunks demand a shot at destitution. I'm ready for it, they claim. I'm next in line for it. And besides, they add, in a stage whisper, I know it by heart. Wrong. Oh, so wrong. Like the cheeky vixen who looked the queen up and down and said, what's she got that I haven't got more of? Such misapprehensions can never lead to social change. Not in a million years. Why is it that people who own sawmills prefer to use platitudes when the real thing can be had for the asking? Is it because they think people are unwilling to pay for the difference? Or can't tell the difference? Oh, sure, they say, if you're talking about acquiring a rich patina over the years, no question about it. But who's interested in patinas these days? Just answer me that. And we all know about postponing gratification. How many folks do you think you'll hear say, come on down to the rumpus room? I want to give you a taste of the real thing. Sure. We're not taken in by his salesman's line. We know for a fact that his grandfather, the founder of the mill, turned down an invitation to a chamber music concert with these words, have you ever heard Pete go twickle-o-tweet on his piccolo? The exigencies of the marketplace. Our foot. Physicians who have taken to healing themselves are raising Cain with the status quo. They have no consideration for others. They don't give a hoot for the pain of the people. Your lumbago can go climb a tree for all they care. Knock, knock, who's there? It's me, Doc. Joe Deaver. That swelling behind my ear. Damn you, man. It's all I can do to heal myself. Gosh, Doc, what's the matter? You sick or something? Don't get cute with me. Beat it. Their fellow workers in their favorite hospitals have been thrown for a loop. Their laments are reminiscences. Head nurses say he wasn't at all stuck up. He was on a first-name basis with all the newest diseases. Druggists, too, have been hit. His prescriptions came from the heart, they recall. They didn't lead you around by the nose. Golfing partners at the club are unmistakably crestfallen. They feel they've been jilted. They say, how else can you explain those untoward silences at the 19th hole? Taxonomists and taxidermists are squaring off. Each is claiming dominion. He's ours, say the text boys. This is a family matter. We'll handle it our own way. Oh no, say the taxi chaps. Once you're out of it, you're out of it. And that's where we come in. High courts will be approached. Meantime, medical journals are placing their staffs on an emergency footing. Limestone with traces of sodomy. Six. All is not well with déjà vu. It's under attack from a variety of strange bedfellows. Freelance existentialists who complain that the pickings are slim enough as it is. Church doctrinaires who have put all their eggs into original sin. Roaming bands of headstrong young modernists who have it in for memory and for revisitings of any stripe. Straight-laced psychoanalysts who say that it is skirting the issue. Travel agents who grumble about unfair competition. We will not knuckle under to the baser instincts of men, they all aver. Throwbacks and missing links and tacky sleepwalkers should not be allowed to call the shots. Retired grandmasters are tearfully lecturing on how they finally overcame deja vu and made off with innumerable queens. The bearing of false witnesses being courted, paid informers are being interviewed, but the friends of deja vu are not about to cry uncle or mea culpa or mea pharaoh. Far from it, they are marshalling their forces, calling in chits, mounting a counterattack. They say, "We've been here before. We've got their number." Self-serving decadence masquerading as cost-effective utilitarianism. We're going to wipe the floor up with them this time. They've cast their last slur. Grassroots movements are anticipated. A groundswell is hoped for. The man in the street may yet make his move. Pictures. Still lives. 1. These two potatoes have fallen in love. They want to have children, but they want to get married. That's where they'll run into trouble. Why can't they count their blessings and let it go at that? They have Idaho russets. Perhaps they think they're above the law. Are we dealing here, as we have so often before, with the incurable blindness of the snob? 2. An apple that has fallen to the ground. Observe the slight bruising on its left cheek. Has it learned anything from its fall? Or is it just a bit tighter now with Sir Isaac? We may never know. 3. These grapes from the Moselle, they have on the surface the engaging luster of innocence. They are, well, spotless. A closer look, however, will detect a lurking underglow just beneath the skin, foreknowledge. Thus, innocence is put into question. Are not the two incompatible? Be that as it may, we smile, we doff our hat to them. What verve! 4. The viewer simply cannot take his eyes off the deepening ambiguity in the foreground. For example, the resonance verging on a dialectic that veritable throbs in the relationships between the fish and the dish, between the wine glass and the hourglass. Oh, of course, the knife and the fork are there, but that's just it. Their very inevitability causes us immediately to lose interest in them. They are not participants, only spectators. The game is elsewhere. Seascapes. 1. One is instantly struck by the exquisite playoffs here. Chiaroscuro stalking impasto, background positively aching to subsume foreground, design and its guile, concept and its auteur, how deft their touch and go. Clearly, the last thing this work is asking of you is that you imagine yourself being in its shoes. It deals with us out of noblesse oblige. This must be unequivocally understood, accepted. Within this fait accompli, we are free to come and go as we will, or can. And you, droit de seigneur, keeping our fingers crossed. 2. Eclecticism and serenity are working hand in glove. A single glance at the receding shoreline amply confirms this. Past performances have been kept down to a discrete minimum, just enough to establish that continuity has not been sacrificed to a Johnny-come-lately bravura, which could gull the hasty dilettante. Dissonance of a high order could break out at any moment, which of course enchants us, draws us in. But technique is always there, at the ready, keeping order effortlessly. We are reassured, we are tickled pink. 3. It behooves the beholder to lower his gaze for a few moments, to remove himself, to backtrack. Impetuosity could undercut our grasp, which may well be having troubles of its own. Quite a lot is going on here. We may never know the half of it. Our reapproach, oblique sotto voce, mind open, but we must not let our drawbridge down all the way yet. Luminosity is here aplenty. It is not pushy. We do not have to pay homage to it out front. Mass and depth have been forced to shape up without losing face in the bargain. It is in such all-or-nothing moments that we sense the unmistakable hand of intuition. One cannot say that color is dancing in the streets here, nor is it sulking in corners. This palette is not a squanderer. Neither is it a borrower nor a lender. It is husbanding itself for the long pull, as we all should be. Landscapes. 1. Mere brush strokes should not have the last word. Any more than camels should be permitted to pass through the eye of any needle they take a fancy to. Give a little, take a little. That should be driven home to them at one's earliest convenience, if not quite a bit sooner. Nothing ventured, nothing gained is the motto of madness. Oh, for the headfirst joys of yore, before to be or not to be was on the lips of every arriviste. Before God was coaxed out of the clouds. Freshness and immediacy, shadows and light, one can shout till the cows come home. But that does not tell the whole story, as robbing Peter to pay Paul does not give you the complete lowdown on international banking. One can count on one's fingers. No, don't bother. It's too late for quantitative analysis. Our critical judgment, however, cannot avoid being informed by one elementary fact. Only rich people give stuff like this away. 2. Once again, form and content have swept the field. What a couple of old smoothies. Eminent domain in the offing? That could be. That could very well be. And if so, we would have no choice but to bow to it. Eminence, Greece, not to worry. That was in another country. Besides, the old guy's dead. A tableau that abounds in particulars. Over there, in that copse to the right. That hare, that hound, are they striking a pose or a deal? How dare they? Make hay while the sun shines. 3. Make hay while the sun shines. Sound advice indeed. But that is not the issue here. No hay, as far as the eye can see. Neither to be seen are those outer-directed scamps who pursue the adjuration. Gather your rosebuds while you may. No rosebuds, no scamps. Breakthrough has been given carte blanche. About time. We can relax and enjoy ourselves completely. No urge whatsoever to murmur, mandrake after my own heart, in a genre ransacked by verisimilitude. 7. Evidence is mounting that we have been neglecting our handmaidens. They are walking about in hand-me-downs. They are living from hand to mouth, making to do with handouts. And it would appear that they are getting absolutely no feedback, throwing them completely on the mercy of hearsay. They're still too proud to stoop to lip service. To what do we owe this shameful state of affairs? Is it that the state has become a private affair? Or could it be that shame no longer requires an affair in order to enter the service of the state? Be that as it may, we must bestir ourselves. Before things get beyond our reach, they are already out of hand. Public officials must be called onto the carpet. Many must be floored. Tabling is too good for them. Soul-searching is in order, unrelieved by back-scratching or sudden dips into the pork barrel. Label for label and caught off guard, can the common man in our streets really be expected to make a wise choice between maid by hand and hand in your maidens? Are our school children being double-crossed by their teachers, hot-eyed climbers who've chucked their pinafores in their mad rush for petites fours, leading, they hope, to their favorite minotaurs? We could lay the blame at the feet of our phenomenologists. This would be far less inadvisable, of course, than showering their feet with kisses. 1 if by day, 2 if by night may be an okay motto, or for fledgling potentates on the town in Wien or Parigi, but it certainly wouldn't come in handy around here. In regard to our handmaidens, no. What is called for is a down-to-earth, no-frills caveat emptor. Let the neglectors beware. One should be advised that our HMs no longer stroll hand in hand down primrose paths. They've now begun to work hand in glove, as well as tongue in cheek. We've been asking too much of our explorers, breathing down their necks, exhausting them with our requests, our shopping lists. Get me this, get me that. Don't forget to bring back some of the following, and while you're at it, no wonder they've been returning from their quests of the unknown grumpy, out of sorts, down in the mouth. Couldn't find a moment for myself. You'd think we're common errand boys, gophers. I'll never break into Science Monthly at this rate. This is no way to hit the jackpot. There are some here who spend all their working hours digging their own graves. There are some who are their own worst enemy. Others, only too well known in the profession, whose principal activity is cutting off their nose to spite their face. The message is clear. Must mind our manners. Stand back, hands off. Achtung, verboten. The Surgeon General has determined. Laissez-faire cannot be an idle boast, nor can it be a veal roast. It is our piece de résistance. Our avant-garde must be reassured of this. Otherwise we're sunk, doomed to repeat ourselves. What have you done with my husband? Do we hear that sort of cry anymore these days? Of course not. Any more than we hear, has anyone seen my wife? Vogues come, vogues go. Only yesterday, it seems catacombs were all the rage. Just try to find one today. They're collector's items. And the prices they're fetching. Well then, what spouse inquires does one hear? Yonder peasant, could that be she? No, try again. Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell. Absolutely not. Out of the question. Tit for tat, yes. But we simply cannot permit ourselves to sink to nouvelle cannibalism. Surely there must be other activities we can pursue that will comfort us for the loss of the past. Not for 1 second forgetting that you live in a time when nothing any longer can be taken for granted, nor can credit any longer be given where credit is due. Credit cards have taken care of most of that, and flawed computer programmers have delivered the coup de grace to the remainder. A gathering of albinos. Who now dares to ask, where are the snows of yesteryear? Who is to say that clochards may not play croquet? Have we had a counting of hands on this, or have we simply been checking out our sticky wickets? A substantive difference, particularly to those of us who'd rather take leave of our wives than our senses. It will do no good to drag out sacred texts, nor will it help matters to cite the inalienable rights of each arrondissement to destroy itself in the manner of its own choosing. No, all that would be skirting the issue at a time when skirt chasing needs all the help it can get. Will it be claimed that our playing fields are overcrowded, that too many mallets spoil the broth? The same people would of course point an accusing finger at our ship of state and shout, "You're listing! You have overbooked third class!" Who stands on such firm ground that we can insist that the clochard fall asleep under a bridge clutching a dead soldier rather than le boule. Darn right, le boule. Going round the bend. If you're thinking of making that trip for the weekend, let's say, you would do well to consult a list of do's and don'ts. It will make all the difference in the world, and you will thank your lucky stars for years to come. Don'ts. Don't act like a tourist. This would make the permanent residents jumpy. They would peg you as a fool and might want to bring you down a peg or two. Don't tip your hand while tipping lavishly. Don't call anybody by their first name. They will think you have something on them. Don't try to pack everything into the first day. Pace yourself. Consider timing your moves carefully. Don't say things, "I just happen to be in the neighborhood." Don't say things like, "I just happen to be in the neighborhood." Do's. Grease as many palms as you can. This will show that you are trustworthy. down to earth. It will put the palmists on notice. It will separate the psalmists from the cheerleaders and keep idle choir boys at arm's length. Be indulgent in your responses whenever and wherever you see the sign, always room for one more. They may not really mean you. Tell yourself that anyway. And of course they could be kidding. Keep reminding yourself of that. Pay homage at all the local shrines. Keep to a minimum, however, the number of times you drop to your knees. But at the same time, do not pass up any opportunities to get the drop on any know-it-alls hanging about. Be attentive when local customs are being explained to you. You may learn how to get out in the nick of time, if that seems like a good idea. One has this to say of foreshortening: beware. You may yet overstep yourself. 8. Curtains for Kathy. A predestined one-act play, having to do with a young lady at a Swiss finishing school who made up her mind one day to take the bull by the horns, to test the strength of de rigueur. We'll see if you're just a lot of hot air, she said. She goes to the headmistress' Sunday tea dressed as a camp follower. La truite, you betcha, la truite. It's now or never. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. No matter that those very words were shouted by the mayor of Troy as he flung open the gates to the Trojan horse. Galley slaves need not fear that they will lose their jobs. After all, did flogging vanish when they did away with whipping posts? Au contraire, tongue lashing does not seem to be playing second fiddle to backlashes, and certainly whipping boys have never had it so good. Nobody's asking us to burn our bridges. But there, that's just it. That's the problem, right there. Do you have any idea what kinds of things have been making their way over those bridges? Think about it. You will realize that this is our last chance. Avanti. Why must Wolfgang always be late? Is it the Bratwurst, the Strudel, the Gemütlich, the Weltschmerz? Or is it, well, really, is it that he gets trapped in fields of Edelweiss? Going under. Preferable by far to sinking. In fact, many people who are sinking are heard to groan, "I only wish I were going under." Some guys have all the luck. Very likely these chaps have not played their cards right or made the right connections. Going under, of course, carries with it certain inherent obligations, code of behavior, and you cannot make funny sounds regarding it. For example, the phone rings, the voice at the other end says, "Hello, Houseman, is that you?" Gluck, 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 gluck. No, absolutely forbidden. Really now, what would your grandfather Pennybaker say? One would think you were merely collapsing, old boy, try harder. Sounds like a marvelous book. I'm afraid I don't have much time to read these days. I'm going under, you see? I'd love to stay for another set, but I've got to get a move on. I'm going under. Oh, you hadn't heard? That's the ticket. Some things you simply cannot observe to a policeman as he moves in to arrest you. Things like, "Are you quite sure this is what you want to do?" Or, "All technique and no heart." 3 questions must be asked here. 1. Is it really entirely out of the question that we should consider laying votive propitiatory offerings at their feet? 2. Why do we resist regarding policemen as mandarins? 3. Properly speaking, shouldn't the offerings consist entirely of our guilt? This would go a long way toward curing us of blurting out, "They're only human, aren't they?" Oh, the vulgarity of those would-be court attendants who claim this is currying favor. Lassitude and childhood. How this twosome has been vilified through the ages. They have been met with contumely at railway stations, watering holes, clearing houses, sellouts, clashes by night. Aspersions have been cast by rumor mongers and fishwives. Accusations have been hurled by heavy-set phys ed teachers behind the curtains, if not actually waiting in the wings, The authorities have threatened action. Poof, we say, merde. Beware the Ides of lassitude, they howl, Cassandras, on every street corner, peddling their stale Knockwurst. Knuckle rappers and earboxers, be advised. Your days are numbered. Bobby Shafto is back in town. I have to get out of here. I can't take this anymore. Who said that? Marie Antoinette? King Tut? The old lady who lived in a shoe? Darling, if I've told you once, I've told you 100 times. You must do something about your moat. It's a positive disgrace. One of these mornings you're going to wake up, look out your window and shout, "What's this? What's this?" Brother and sister teams, are they doomed to extinction? To be replaced by heartless hoofers and porous young celibates? Have we become so jaded, so supremely confident in our tax shelters, that we can sit on our hands and do nothing, as our natural resources disappear one by one, declaring them relics and putting them on a pedestal, while merely gloss over the issue and create rampant hoarding of pedestals? Declaring a national holiday to celebrate the memory of... No, that will not fill the void. Roping of streets has never changed the lay of the land. Heavily granted and highly handed research teams may, of course, be permitted to do some rooting on the job, but not enough to prejudice their findings. Without question, they shall avoid rootless types. Those people are always rooting about just for the heck of it. The very same who have made it abundantly clear that they would far, far rather have a fast root canal job than have to figure out the square root of evil. Nor should our researchers surround themselves with uprooted types who will present their bill at the worst possible moment. Their conclusions must be above reproach. Their behavior, of course, must be able to hold its own in any company. There is no substitute for poverty, but try telling that to a sob sister. 9. Being schooled in the Gallic ironies. A course in metallurgy? No, not exactly. Now, do you see why you're always landing in the soup? Looking down one's nose, what is the correct age at which to start this heady activity? Shouldn't the laying of groundwork be insisted upon as a prior condition or as a quality safeguard? Surely we are on firm ground in recommending a solo flight. What about ground controls? Sure. Without loss of face. None, whatever. Of course, timing is everything. The rest is hearsay. To spot the door, to fling it open, to shout, "Stop feathering your nest!" It took absolutely no one by surprise. They have finally split up into two camps, opposing naturally. The traditionalists will firmly resist any overtures to break camp. They deeply resent any suggestions that they are merely camping out. Shallow gibberish, they say. A certain member would like to say shallow nibberish, sallow nibberish, but she knows the others would accuse her of horsing around. The revisionists do not see themselves as that. They can take camping or leave it alone. They are distinctly up to something else. We have consummated our beliefs, says a member of this group. Contrary to what our former allies are mongering, this does not mean that we have drunk huge amounts of consommé and then fallen upon one another with unbridled lust. She's the sister of that other lady, as you would eventually have discovered, quite by yourself. The building of a cordon sanitaire, undoubtedly, but it would be best if this were funded by private donations. Flawless bores should be offered as examples, but on a first-come, first-served basis, you understand? Drop by sometime and pick up your past. Cheeky, wouldn't you say? Ah, well. There are those who will hurl just about anything within arm's reach after you've once indicated beyond the shadow of a doubt that you no longer plan to give them the time of day. They, however, may shout back, "You're wrong! We're merely lining our pockets, for gosh sakes." Are you prepared to deal with this? You, of all people? 10. Covering one's tracks. It's never too early to begin. And that's from Chandler Brossard's anthology Over the Rainbow Hardly. The story was called Closing the Gap. Good night, and I'll read you next week. We're all thrown into it, one way or the other. We all try to steer it as straight as we can. Sometimes we collide with each other. Who is to blame? And who's gonna fix the boat? Life, oh life, there's nothing to fear from your life. Let me know if I can be of any help. Life, you and I, let's try a fresh start today. What do you say? Let's close the door on the past. So we swim, and it is in so many ways just a little trick to keep our heads above water. But now I'm not afraid anymore. Life